Using the multilingual resources of a classroom. We have discussed how multilingualism is prevalent in India and how you can understand the differences in multilingualism in the earlier session. In this session, we are going to look at how you as teachers can use such multilingual resources to enhance the language skills of the students. In India, the situation is not easy as students come from different language and dialect backgrounds. However, there is an evidence of growing literature which supports the need to teach basics of language and promote cultural integrity by focusing on these multilingual resources. Any school in India would reflect an increasingly rich linguistic diversity which brings to light opportunities as well as challenges. The challenges of multilingualism are strongly felt while trying to teach English. This is because students at different grade levels have limited proficiency of the language. Every teacher who works in a multilingual classroom faces the challenge of implementing new methods of teaching and reading to help in ensuring that all the students are able to adapt to the style of teaching. However, with some or many students having a relatively less proficiency in English, language such as effort is a Herculean task. This study aims at teaching some practical efforts which can be carried out as teachers to promote the use of multilingual resources in a classroom. The aim of this session is to teach basics of English for a grade 1 or grade 2 level student. We will adapt such a case study approach as it will help the teacher understand the level of the students and help implement the exercises in a timely manner. Theoretical basis of using multilingual resources of a classroom. The use of multilingual resources of a classroom has been well supported in literature. Let us look at some theoretical perspectives on this issue. According to some authors, the socio-cultural and cognitive benefits of adding the number of languages in any second language situation is useful as it helps in the development of an effective medium of learning. These authors propose these concepts under the theory of additive bilingualism. Following this, some other researchers expanded on the concept of additive bilingualism by proposing the concept of additive multilingualism. When there is complex acquisition of multiple languages, when this process of acquisition is mutually supportive, then it can be propagated that additive multilingualism is promoted. This proposition of additive multilingualism is presented on the description of Cummins' underlying proficiency used to predict cognitive interdependence. Such cognitive interdependence of accumulated linguistic knowledge is found to support certain individual language acquisitions by promoting the individual's ability for deeper transferable communicative proficiencies. This is theorized as the interdependence principle and is still till date considered as an important aspect which defines the use of the multilingual resources of a classroom. However, some authors claim that compared to multilingualism, bilingualistic people has an edge towards awareness of other languages and problem solving. Furthermore, empirical evidences support the idea that the maintenance of a child's language proficiency helps support the child's language development and their cultural identity. In one of the study on the effectiveness into the schooling of language, it was found that success factors include cognitive complex on grade level instruction using both the first and second language till grade 5 and 6. Following this, cognitively complex on grade level academic instruction is used in English for parts of the school day in each succeeding grade by increasing the number of hours of English taught. The study also identified the need to change the socio-cultural context of teaching and teach new concepts through odd means. Finally, the study also suggested the use of specific topics using two different languages to ensure that the student is able to make the necessary comparison and arrive at comprehensive results. Such an approach helps in building a systematic understanding of the English language by relating to the mother tongue of the child. It is observed that the implementation of such an approach is most important in an Indian scenario. However, in India, complexities arise due to the fact that there is a multitude of languages. Currently, efforts towards multilingual education in India focus on using Hindi as the primary alternative language. This attempt may not necessarily work as there are a significant number of children in India who do not use the English language. The promotion of multilingual education in India would involve the teaching system becoming creative and using the students as the primary source of knowledge of other languages. Furthermore, it is argued that the promotion of multilingualism requires strong political will of all interest groups in order to ensure that there is mobilization of the necessary resources for implementation. Using multilingualism as a resource to integrate children. Researchers have identified that when there are multiple languages spoken in a classroom, there is often a division among the children and a tendency to form groups based on their mother tongue. It is important that in such cases, the students in the class are brought together to appreciate the value of linguistic diversity. The promotion of linguistic diversity in the classroom can be brought about by following certain principles. Let us now look at some of these principles and identify some icebreakers exercises that the teacher can promote in the classroom. The first principle involved is the communication of a positive attitude towards linguistic diversity. This is carried out by displaying slogans in the classroom which support language learning. To do this, the teacher is asked to find out the different languages that are spoken in the class. The students can then make a pie chart of the spoken languages and display it on the class board. This will help them understand that multilingualism is accepted and promoted in the classroom. Following this, there can be incorporation of other languages and other varieties of English in the teaching process. This is carried out by creating multilingual display signs to compare how ideas are expressed in different languages. The students can also be encouraged to consult with their adults to produce dual language versions of projects and assignments. Such an effort will help expand the student knowledge of their first language and provide their parents with opportunities to teach their first language to the children. Another important principle to encourage a welcoming environment in the classroom is to learn simple expressions in the mother tongue. For example, if a teacher in New Delhi is able to greet her students in Tamil as Vanakkam or in Chinese, Ni hao, it will create an atmosphere of friendliness and support. For example, if the students are meeting in the class for the time that year, all of them can be asked to write hello in their mother tongue by using art supplies, and these can be pasted together as a collage. The teacher can then bring this up to the center of the class and hold a lively discussion on how to say hello in different languages. It is also equally important to encourage students to speak English in the classroom, even if it is done incorrectly. For example, consider an accountancy term, debtor. If you pronounce it correctly, then the B is silent. However, for new learners of the language and for learners who have Bengali or Odisha as the mother tongue, there is a tendency to stress the syllable B. For such students, it would be effective if the teacher explains how the word is to be uttered by giving the reason. Researchers of multilingualism strongly support the idea that there is a need to first integrate the class and encourage the students to communicate with each other. This sets the tone to a good educational background. By following the above practical exercises, it is possible for the teacher to integrate students from different backgrounds and create a warm and welcoming environment. Teaching pronunciation using multilingual resources. Now, we will see how these resources can be used to teach basis pronunciation. When second language learners of English are considered, it is important to understand that there is difficulty in producing sounds as well as understanding or hearing the differences in sound. In India, most of us are second language learners of English. Over years, we master the language, but our mind has a tendency to think in our mother tongue. As teachers, when you try to teach English to the children, it is important that you promote their phonemic awareness. This awareness promotes the ability of the students to perceive sound and present subtle differences among sounds. The following practical exercises can be promoted in your classroom to ensure that the student phonemic awareness of the English language is present and they are able to articulate and intonate English words and phrases most effectively. To help pronounce words correctly and in the right time, compare sentences in English to the native language. For example, consider the simple questions. What are you doing here? And its Hindi equivalent. आप यहाँ क्या कर रहे हो? The students can be taught the importance of intonation using the sentences. Ask the students to pronounce the question in Hindi in a normal tone and in an accusatory tone. Then point it out to the students that when pronounced normally, there was no pause anywhere through the sentence. However, when the question was presented in an accusatory manner, it was observed that there was stress on the term up and a pause after yahan. Similarly, if the speaker wishes to stress the same in English, then there should be stress on the first word what. Such a practical exercise will help students understand that they should pronounce by giving stress to different words. Another method to encourage students to understand the differences in pronunciation is by using minimal pairs. Pairs of words or those words which can be considered to be identical in nature except for one specific vowel or consonant sound. For example, consider the words sit, seat, sleep. Now ask the students to draw any activity relating to these words. Ask them to write below these figures the words in English and in their mother tongue. In English, the students get confused between the words sit and seat because they sound quite similar. However, if you consider it in Hindi, the word sit is baitna and the word seat is asan. Similarly, sit in Tamil is utkar and seat is asanam. By adapting such an approach, the teacher will be able to teach the students how to differentiate between words in English. Another way to promote learning of pronunciation in the multilingual classroom is by helping the child understand the aspect of rhyme. To do this, a practical exercise can be adopted. Students should be given a list of alphabets and asked to write rhyme. One example can be given by the teacher like all, ball, call, fall, hall, tall and wall. The students can be asked to write their list of words. They will help in promoting phonemic awareness. Teaching narration using multilingual resources. The use of multiple languages in education has been strongly supported in literature. The importance of storytelling in improving the narrative skills has been well established in literature. It is observed that storytelling not only helps people develop their skills of narrative reasoning, but also helps students develop discursive reasoning skills. In turn, we develop an enhanced reasoning ability that arises from narrative reasoning and narrative meaning construction. It can be argued that narrative reasoning helps us to empathize with other people, become better learners, increase their intelligence, and develop a coherent and healthy sense of personal identity. For learners of English as a second language, the use of storytelling is most useful in understanding how to narrate. This helps the students improve their skills of speaking in English and relating to different concepts. Researchers have also shown that the ability of a child to think more creatively and narrating fluently can be promoted by adopting multilingual academic teaching. Researchers indicate that students are able to understand stories and promote narration in a better manner if they are able to relate to their own experiences. In order to promote such a multilingual use, this research will use the example of the popular story Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The purpose of this exercise is to teach children cultural heritage as well as make them narrate stories fluently. The teacher should call all the students and tell them that there was a little girl who walked into a house of bears and decided to make food. The teacher should then proceed on to tell the entire story to the students using a mix of primary and secondary speech. This will help the students know the basics behind storytelling. Following this, the teacher can ask the students as to the traditional meals that they eat in their own homes and narrate the same as a story. A student who speaks Punjabi, though telling the story in English, will also narrate the different foods that are made at home for dinner. The teachers can then call upon a student from South India and ask them to tell the story. As each child narrates the story, the teacher writes down the different forms of food that are eaten. After all of them finish, the teacher can explain to the students on how different regions in India have different food habits. By using such a lesson, the teacher can not only help in improving the narrative skills of the students, but the teacher can also make the classroom more interesting by teaching how diverse the Indian culture and food system is. The aim of such an approach is to ensure that there is promotion of experimental pedagogies of the teacher. The teacher makes use of traditional storyline and traditional teaching methods in order to evolve a vision which is multiliterature in practice, facilitate expression, ensure that there is promotion of proficient and flexible language and literary development for children from multiple cultures. Promoting student observation skills in a multilingual classroom. This section will identify how students' reading and observational skills can be promoted in a multilingual classroom. To understand this process, we will take a case study approach of Shweta, who is a first grade teacher working in a multilingual classroom. Shweta read through literature and understood that if she wanted to help her students become competent readers and writers, then she should organize her curriculum around a number of different themes. Shweta teaches mainly in English, but similar to the other sections of the study, she proposes to integrate teaching in English with other local languages. Before Shweta teaches the class, she first previews the lesson with her peers who know other languages. Her focus is on using Hindi and Marathi as these languages were most dominant in her class. To show how Shweta taught her students how to read and promote observational skills is explained through her teaching on a unit on bugs. Through the methods that Shweta adapted, she was able to ensure that her students developed academic concepts as well as linguistic proficiency. To start the unit and help the students understand the basis of learning, Shweta first sang two favorite songs from kindergarten, The Itsy Bitsy Spider and Five Little Bees. Both these songs were not only about animals but also helped Shweta teach the students numbers. Shweta started her lesson by writing the words of the song on a piece of paper. She then asked the children to sing the songs together while she tracked the words on the song chart. Following this, she asked the students to go back home and ask their parents to help to translate the song into their mother tongue. The next day, Shweta found that there were three main languages in which the song was written, in Tamil, Hindi and Marathi. So Shweta asked the speakers of these languages to come to the front of the class and teach the others the songs in the language. The class sang the songs in all languages and Shweta pointed out the differences between English and the native languages. Shweta then asked the students to identify what the songs had in common. The students identified that bugs or insects was the common theme. By using a fun-filled multilingual exercise, Shweta was able to teach the class the basis of the unit. Following this, she asked the students to list out what they knew about spiders. The students gave a range of answers from biting, making webs and eating flies. Shweta then brought out a chart on the nature of spiders and explained the same. A similar track was used to explain about bees. From the above example, it is seen that to teach students observational skills and to help them develop their reading patterns, it is important that they are asked to learn the foundation in any language. Such a process is useful because it not only helps the students relate between different languages, but also helps them remember the concepts for a long period of time. Similar to the exercise carried out by Shweta, you as teachers should develop your units based on the multilingual resources of the classroom. This will help in promoting the students' observation skills. To conclude this topic, we will see some of the recommendations which can be implemented at a school level to understand how multilingual resources can be used in any classroom. The first recommendation is to conduct language surveys in different forms. These surveys help determine the home language of the learner and the preference of the parents. Following this, there can be organization of training for peer interpreters in schools where teachers and significant number of learners do not have a language in common. The school can also appoint some language volunteers, that is retired teachers or parents who can be of use in promoting the multilingual perspective. Finally, the school should appoint certain clustering groups to develop curricula which helps integrate the multilingual resources of the classroom. In India, given the prevalent nature of multilingualism, it is only prudent that such measures are taken across schools in different states to help the students to learn and retain concepts without memorizing them. As future teachers, you should take efforts to understand the multilingual resources of a classroom and integrate the same into your teaching practices to help ensure that there is student unity, improvements in student observation, narration and pronunciation. Thank you.